I just talked to him, so I'm sure he's being he's either here or getting on. Yeah,
Okay.
because he's I see him every day. So
Well, that's what I was telling you. When he brought it up, I was like, you are kidding me. He goes, no. I'm like, yeah, of course.
yeah, yeah. You know what's interesting? I when people ask me how did this, him coaching, I try to take it back to. I'm assuming everyone's old enough to remember the 1990s Lakers and the triangle offense. Well, I know Pat was the coach, but over on the sideline was the oh gosh, he escaped my mind right now. The older coach who was
Oh,
there that had the
Tex Winter.
experience. Sorry.
Tex Winter?
Text. That's right. So the thing is that we obviously know, but a lot of experience makes a huge difference to a lot of people. The experiences, especially coming from the 80s and 90s when we had more physical education in school and biomechanics and things were more important, and we didn't have the social media where you could just become an immediate coach. So he's a big, big, big welcome, and he runs a lot of the workouts. And oh, by the way, and he is our relay coordinator. so, so now I'll leave it at that. No more relay talk.
I was going to say, no more relay,
No,
please.
I'm not getting into that.
Well,
Um,
Andy is
unless
on.
it's U of H relay because we have a lot of success. We can talk
There,
about
I
that.
know. There he is. Andy, we've been proclaiming your excellence here. So, for those of you that don't know, Andy Farrar is an assistant coach and the relay coach here at University of Houston,
Mhm.
and he's the one that set this up, coordinated with Carl to be on. So, double thanks there. But let's get started. So, we take advantage of the time we have. And just to refresh, because we have a lot of new people on here tonight, which is exciting, that the PACA calls were set up, 5 years ago or so by Brooks Johnson, and it's for Podium Athlete Coaches Association. And I can think of no one better to be a podium athlete and now a coach than Carl Lewis. And that Carl has, shown excellence obviously on the track, in the field, and now on the coaching side. So we're very blessed to have you here tonight, and thank you. Carl has asked pretty much, we're going to kind of go question answer. So hopefully you guys have a bunch of questions. I only have 2 pages of questions. So,
You have to be going all the way back.
yeah, I was going to say, Carl and I go way back. So we'll keep it straight at that. But, and I don't know if many of you know, or if all of you know, that in my recollection, Carl was the first collegiate athlete and correct me if I have any of this wrong, Carl, it has been 40 years, that basically left the NC2A system and fought and achieved the fact that collegiate athletes could leave with eligibility and yet start and get paid, like trust
Yeah.
funds. Back in the day, it was a trust fund type of setup. But all of these athletes and collegiate athletes that are getting paid now, either through NIL or whatever, Carl was the one that opened the door back in 19, what, 82-ish?
81. Gosh,
81.
81. Yeah, yeah.
And so, like I say, I doubt many of the collegiate athletes today know that they have him to thank for opening the door. And Carl, can you reflect back on that at all as to what
Yeah.
was going on?
Well, what's really interesting when I went to the University of Houston in '79 as a freshman, I was determined to make our sport like every other professional sport. So the first thing I talked to Coach Tellez about is how can I make this sport allow me to be successful financially and earn a living. But so the funny thing is that and become a millionaire. That's what I wanted. And so the funny thing about it is that right away, the first year I realized it was impossible under the present system because I found out who made the most and all the people. So it had to change. And so that was really what it was about. It was about changing. And the whole point wasn't just becoming financially secure, but it was also giving the athletes a voice. Because obviously amateurism forever had no voice. We can go back to my hero, Jesse Owens, where simply wanted to go home, and he lost his status. And if we look at Tommy and John, just for really standing up for something they believed in, they lost their medals. So these are the things that you that don't happen when you're a professional, because you have more power and to actually affect change. So that was really the main impetus for it for me.
Excellent. Well, the pressure we're heading into the next Olympics being a hometown or home country Olympics. And of course, your first Olympics, that's what it was in 84. What kind of pressures do you either remember, or do you think our current athletes are going to have going into LA?
Well, I can actually answer both well, because the pressure that I had in '84. First of all, you have to understand that I decided to try to go for four at the end of 1981 before I announced anything, and the pressures are different because of the way the media is set up. The media was one-sided, so they got your information, they presented it, and there were only a few mediums to get it to people. So that made it a lot more challenging. And then, of course, the LA Olympics was the first Olympics where they ever sought out an athlete and promoted them in advance of the Olympics. So I went from someone in 1982 that was a well-known track athlete, in Europe and different places, to 1983, who's this guy that may run next year, to the beginning of 1984. From that January until September, I was on the cover of a national magazine every single moment. So it includes Time twice in a row, Newsweek twice, GQ, Esquire, People, even the National Enquirer. So just think about this, going from someone that was really didn't know, and I was still pretty young. I mean, I turned 23 1 month before the games, and we didn't have publicists, we didn't have managers in those days, because technically we were not allowed to, because of the way that the financial system was set. So you're standing in the checkout line every single time, and people are looking on the counter and looking at you. I mean, think about that as 20. As a 22-year-old. And so it was a huge amount of pressure. And then this, I think everyone can relate to this. So I was doing a press conference before the Olympics. I think it was right at the very beginning of the games. So it was before track and field, but after the games started. Huge press conference, 600 or 700 people are there. And one reporter asked me this question: what if you win 3 gold medals and get 1 silver? So and I'm sitting here.
No pressure.
The absurdity of the question, right? But then it made me realize, wow, it's all or nothing, and to a lot of people. And so I could win 3 gold medals, and we could lose a relay, and then they're going to talk about the relay. So it was quite a bit. But the flip side now is kids now, they think they want that pressure, but they have a unique advantage with social media, because now they can communicate directly to the public. And I mean, I would have loved to have had social media now. I think it's an enhancement for athletes. It's a good thing if they don't allow the social media to take the place of who and what you really are.
Yeah, is that something that you either counsel your current athletes on, or talk about with the current group?
Counsel and monitor.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. I monitor the recruits. If we're recruiting someone, I monitor them as well, because the bottom line is that they even think Snapchat goes away forever, but nothing goes away. And so the first thing I tell any person with social media is put your name up. Beat Bob. I mean, it makes no sense. So what is the purpose of social media? It is to communicate. So the first thing I say, stop. It doesn't put your name up, so when people search you, they find you, so that you can tell what you say. And also remember that every single thing you put there will not be forgotten. It'll be remembered. And being in college, it's a unique situation why I would rather be here than post-collegiate, because every college athlete can win. They all can win. 99% of them will never go to the next level, but 100% of them can get a degree.
Right.
And 100% of them can advance their life by this experience. And so I focus on that, because you go, and I make it clear, and Andy will say it, you go to college for the number one reason you go to college is to make money. So what I'm trying to do is counsel them on how social media can affect your earning potential down the line. Now, we know that the value of a college degree in the United States right now is worth more than about 95% of all track athletes will ever make.
Wow.
And so understanding that, I make it clear and I say that to them so that they understand why you're here. You're here to maximize your financial potential and fulfill your career. So if you get the degree and you are a person like a Shah Maswangani who finished, honors in 4 years, it's going to enhance your financial potential. And if you don't go to the next level, then you have that degree, but that time spent is something on your resume. We have a kid named Ariane Brown who, was there 2 years and didn't run well and didn't do things, but he hung in there. So he's a great kid. He ended up, because of injuries and other things, running on our relay last year, and they were third at nationals. He's a first team All-American. He was a JV indoors. So now we have a first team All-American who's getting his degree in December. And when he goes into a job, he puts down, I'm an H-Town Speed City member. I was an All-American. People see that. So that's why the good thing about college, everyone can win.
So college coaches and high school coaches, I hope you listen to that, and maybe you can share that with your student athletes too, because now you say you watch or have somebody watching the recruiting social media. So what are some things that you're seeing that will turn you off from recruiting a potential?
Language is something big. Women, how they're dressing. I mean, that's a big thing, because if you see women that are too racy and too sexual, that's something to worry about, because you're going from home to a college campus with a lot of people, and and a lot of kids that are your age that in a lot of ways prey on young people, especially athletes. So we're looking at that. If you're promiscuous, we want you to be a lady and have success on the relay team, not be the baton.
I've never heard that one, but that's one for the
I got a bunch of them.
You got a bunch of them? Okay, we're just getting started here, I can see. So that's very interesting, because now you bring out the female and the sexual dressing and all of that. What are you looking for in the male?
The same thing about the males, their language, how they act. I will see kids on the team and I'll see them with another guy, and they'll, let's say, somewhere with a bunch of dollars in their hand, or giving gang type signs. And if they're on the team, I immediately go after them. If they're not, it's like, that's, I got to pause. So there's definitely red flags that you look for, because you don't want perfect people. You're not going to get perfect people, but it's not just that, it's the response. Because when I recruit, it's a certain type of athlete. What I'm not going to do is baby you. I make it clear that you're coming to the University of Houston because I can help you. I don't need you. I don't need anything from you. I've got my medals, I got my money, I got my fame. So therefore, I'm not, in another way of saying it, I'm not pimping you to advance my career. Right. What I'm trying to do is convince you that I can help you get what you want. And that's the process. So because of that, I'm a little bit more honest in recruiting. I don't send them a bunch of gifts. We don't call them on holidays, because it doesn't matter. It's like, it should be about you, because you know what? This is the first chance in any high school kid's life that they can be selfish, and it's a good thing. They can be selfish about making a choice that's best for them and their future and their life. So since you can be selfish about who can help you. Be selfish about what you want to accomplish. Be selfish about how hard you want to work. Be selfish about what you want to achieve. And that's what I try to tell them all the time. So if you come to Houston, you're coming because I can help you get to where you want to be, not because you're going to help our program. So I don't talk about, we won these titles, we have great uniforms, and we have great facilities, looks good and all that. But it's not about that. I never let that come into the conversation. It's always about, can I help you do what you want? And we lose kids because of that, because I'm not calling them on their birthdays, everything else. But I just don't think that those kids will make it, because I'm not going to do it when you get here.
Exactly.
So no now.
Well, the big question in my mind is several years ago. Now, again, when you and Leroy were coaching there at Houston, that was like, the old teammates and friends and all of that. What made you go into coaching?
To be honest, when I left track, I got on a train track, and it was one way, could not turn around. Believe it or not, I was burned out. But I got into it because another thing that I talk about the kids, when I moved back to Houston, I was 52. Okay. I had really, I bought a house. I had really nothing to do. But, I still work. I still do appearances and still relationships, still have a contract with Nike, which is, for years in advance, and all of these things. And I still make a very, very good living, but I didn't have anything for my spare time. So I said, I'll come volunteer. And so the reason I'm here is because I worked my tail off when I was their age. And I ran my career all the way, and I sacrificed and I made all those things. And so I just volunteered. And then as time went on, I wanted to help more, because the reason why I started is because I had time. The reason why I'm doing it really is because the university and what Coach Tom Tellez did for me. And I want to help those young people, because he completely changed my life. And I am certain that if I didn't go there, you would know me, other than the high school kid that did well. I would not have improved the way I did. I would not have had the career that I did. So there is some loyalty, and I love my university for what it stands for, with its long-term diversity and the change, and it being in the city and all that stuff. So it's all of that. So the track part came after that. It was something that I had the ability to do it. I appreciated what came from, and I want us to win. I want U of H to win. As you mentioned earlier, I left after 2 years, and that was a complicated time with myself, the athletic director, and the finances, all these things. And so I really think that the next year when Stanley Floyd came, we would have had a chance to win a national championship. So I have a second chance at it. And so that's really what I'm trying to do, help the university.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned Tellez, and of course, he's near and dear to many of us. And I noticed that you guys are building a statue or some memory thing there. Not memory, because he's still here.
Still alive.
Yeah, let's don't do that. But what influence, so you say you wouldn't be Carl Lewis if you hadn't met him. What influence was he on your life, or how did he, as a college coach and a professional coach, mold and help you?
First of all, he was exactly what I needed. I am just a facts man. I don't need motivation. I don't need to, on a bad day, I don't need someone to say it's okay. Because I'm the type that would say, no, it wasn't. It sucked. I screwed it up. Now, what did I do wrong so we can fix it? And he was that kind of person, but he wasn't that type of language, but he was a pretty straightforward person. So that's what I wanted. I knew what I wanted. When I stepped on that campus at the University of Houston, my freshman year, the first thing I said is okay, let's get to work, because I need to jump 29 feet. That's what it was. And that's why I chose Houston, because he's the only coach ultimately that gave me a plan to do that. So he understood what I asked, and then I knew that he was going to push me to do it. And when it was over, he was like, okay, we're done. That's it. Practice. Boom. He was not a flashy guy. I believe it or not, he never asked me for a penny, never took a dime or anything like that. And the only time I ever gave him money was when he asked me to help the university track twice. Hey, could you help raise money for the track twice? That's the only time he ever asked me something. I guarantee you, for years, I never carried cash. I probably owe him $10,000 in once. So that was the beginning. But what he did is that what was fascinating to me is it all, as I learned, it all made sense, because it was based on science. It wasn't all this stuff. And he took the science of the things we were doing, and then he made it simple. And so it wasn't complicated in explanation. And that's what I get on young coaches now. You don't have to prove you're smart. I mean, I always say that the way I try to explain is this ghetto. I'm not going to talk dorsiflex and movement and front side. I don't do all of that. I just try to make it where the average person can understand, because I don't care if anyone thinks I'm smart. I just want to make sure they know. And I learned that from him. He never tried to make it complicated. When he explained things, it was simple. But once we got going, then I could always go to him. So what do you think? What do you think I could do this? I'm not sure. Because think about this. When I decided to go for 4 gold medals, the first thing he says, I don't know. Jesse's not alive. His coach isn't alive. No one's alive that's done it. So I don't even know what to do. So let's just figure it out. And that was kind of how it all started. And that's the training. So it was amazing to get that done, considering what we had to do. But I think there are 2 things that kind of illustrate to me, Coach Tellez. When I said, Leroy, I'm going to come volunteer and coach for you, it was in the summer. And so I told Coach Tellez, and he said, well, I'll meet you at the school. We'll do something. So I meet him at the school, and he had a pile of papers like about 6 inches thick. And he says, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So it was all scientific stuff, movement. I did this all these years. And he said, I'll see you. And then when we came back in a couple of weeks, I had just moved to Houston and I bought my mother a home, and my home was not ready yet. So I was staying at her house. So I met him there, and he had me in the street going over all this stuff, each sheet by sheet. Before you get started, you're going to know the science behind this stuff, not just wing it and say it. So that illustrates him. It's always about the science and understanding what you're saying. And then the second thing was when I won the Olympic 100 meters in LA, I remember crossing the line. I took the victory lap. Obviously, it was an incredible moment and an incredible thing. And he was down towards the end of the rope line where all the media is and everything. And the first thing he said to me is, if you had pushed off that front block, you would have broke the world record. And he says, congratulations, go get to bed because you have to jump tomorrow. I mean, that's kind of, and I know I tell that story all the time, and they're like, oh my God, he was mean. I said, no, that was not mean. What it was an illustration of what we were trying to do. And then when I came back to coach, he said, you're going to have the same thing. So I don't look at myself as a coach at Houston. I look at myself as a teacher. I'm teaching a system that's based on science and perfection.
Exactly. Well, I think the science part, and like you say, not to complicate it, but make it so people can understand it and go from there. So I'm sure, do you get pushback by some of the other coaches who say you're not scientific enough in your verbiage?
Well, when I go to a scientific event, I walk out because I can't understand it. And the thing, yeah, and sometimes, I get pushback from some young people and some coaches saying, well, you're not scientific, you don't explain. I've said, look, the bottom line is that I'm not really here for people to think I'm smart. If I was the smartest person in the world, I'd be a billionaire. Okay. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be coaching. I'd be paying the university millions of dollars a year. So I mean, being someone in the position that I am, having the success, to me, allows me to just be freer. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I mean, I don't care if you think I'm smart or not. It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to communicate because I'm talking to people that are 18 to 23 for the most part. And then we have the youth program that's kids from 6 until 17. So I'm not talking to geniuses. I'm talking to young people. Mm-hmm. And so therefore that's that. And if it gets to where you think that, oh my goodness, you don't really know, you're not saying it, and when I say that, you don't understand it, so be it. But all I know is that I've had the success. I had the best coach who could talk like that, but never did. And so that's so I have a role model for the way that I'm doing things.
Well, that I totally agree with you that if anybody has been around Tom Tellez, back in the day, that they definitely would concur with this. And again, if they haven't, I remember him coming to clinics with, like you say, the paper and the handwritten notes, and everybody else had these fancy things, and he was there with notebook paper and handwritten notes. So
just explaining it, right?
Exactly.
So, and I'm happy about that. Because they're really we're really 4 people that completely, totally impacted my career. Obviously, my parents were incredible, and to be on a club, the Willingboro Track Club, way back, there's a sense of not just pride that my parents did it and we were a part of it and the community was involved, but that club was started specifically for girls in 1969. Oh. And so, because my mother was not happy with the fact that women did not have access, because she wanted to coach girls track, but there was no program in the area for girls. So here we are, a progressive African-American woman in the 1960s said girls need access. So that's the first set. And then for the program to become so successful, and my parents do that, and growing up watching them coach all these kids and not realizing that I am just seeing service every day. Mm-hmm. They were teachers, so I'm just seeing people serve, my family serve, and understanding that at a young age that we didn't have a lot of the Christmases the kids have because, they were spending money over here and they were just teachers. We didn't have the vacations because they were always track meets. But to me, growing up through that process, that was normalized. And we were together as a family and friends. So it was normal. I'm from New Jersey, but I never, ever, ever went to the Jersey Shore until I was out of college, my entire life. So to an outside looking in, well, how dysfunctional. You guys in vacation, you spent all of your money, you didn't do this. But the thing is that what we did was we did it together as a family. And that I learned how important that aspect of it was. And also I learned service. It's weird because a few years ago, my brother's like, damn, you become dad. And I have a lot of mom in me too, trust me, because she was a tough one.
Yeah.
But when I hear that, it's great. Then my high school coach was in the same program because my other coached girls, he coached boys. But he understood the power that they had in my life. So he managed that, never like tried to take control of what I was doing, just understood. He talked to them and what do we do? What's going on? So Paul Minori, who I have a lot of respect for. And then, of course, Coach Tellez took me. And when he did, what was great about my parents, they were like, okay, it's his turn. Because I would tell you a funny thing. When I went back my second year from college, after Carol came to the University of Houston, I went home to visit. Dad had a two-seater. He went from the Malibu to a 280Z. It was like, well, it's only us here. I mean, I'm like, when are you selling the house and getting the condo?
Oh,
but all of that was just respecting. They never stepped in the way. They let Coach T and Joe take over. They were a support system. As you know, they traveled everywhere because I started so young. They traveled really for security in the beginning. And then they became everyone's parents. And they coached, they did the the sports festival coaches, all this stuff. So it was just incredible. It was so fortunate. I was so fortunate to have such amazing adults in my life that helped guide me all the way through. None of them, including Joe Douglas, ever wanted anything from me. I remember my mother saying, don't buy me a house, just don't come back to mine. And Coach Tellez never asked me for anything. And Joe, these people, I was just lucky. These people, Paul Minori, these people were incredible in my life.
that is really amazing. Yeah. I mean, Joe Douglas, what did he just have a birthday? And
yeah, last Sunday he turned 88. I went to LA to see him at 88. He looks great. My goodness gracious.
He looks the same, actually.
Yeah, he does look the same.
Well, we've got several questions here in the chat, so let's start going to them. David, why don't you start us off, please? You're on mute. There.
I got it.
Oh,
all right.
hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Hey, Carl, thanks for joining us tonight. So how do you help athletes that you coach manage today's distractions like social media and you being their coach and sideline coaches, things like that?
It's funny you said that. I had a rather terse discussion with our team, and Andy will concur with that today. First of all, the discussion was about, we have one kid on our team. We have about 110 kids. We have one that's 17. The rest are 18. You're adults. You're not children. So when we have at the University of Houston, we have this athletic facility. And we're so fortunate. We have the indoor track there. Our weight room, our training room, our where we dine is there. Everything, academics. So you're all in one building, and the outdoor track is connected to that. So what I do is I say, we pay you scholarship money. So therefore, when you come to this building, it is your job because it's the next step. Because if you're a college athlete, in reality, this is the last place anyone gives a damn about you. From this point on, it's your family and that's it, and friends, because your job is like, okay, we can fire you. So I tell them no earphones once you get in this building, no flip-flops, and leave your bags in your locker because you're being serious. So that's it. So we do that. Now, we have kids that try to test it, and they bring their stuff and they try to hide and sing. So therefore, we have the discussion. That's what children do, So we have that. When we go to track meets, you'll not see us warming up with earphones. You'll not see us walking around in flip-flops. Unacceptable. When you get on the bus, you're coming to work. So you have sneakers on. When you finish, you put them on. There are no flip-flops. You're not. And if you want to go out and watch your earphones, I don't care. But when you start to warm up, nothing. You're focused. You're tuned in. So we just tell them that's the way it is. And some kids push back and some kids want to do it. They'll try to hide and sneak. But then we're talking about that's what children do. So I don't want distractions. And the thing is that when I'm asked what's my power song, I'm like, my power song is natural. I was good as an athlete because of Monday through Friday, not because I got psyched up on Saturday. So I just tell them, no, that's it. We're not doing that in this environment. When you come to practice, we don't do earphones. We don't do flip-flops. We don't do these things. When you go to track meets, you can do it on your own. But once you start warming up, you don't do these things. I just lay it out. Some kids say, oh, you try to tell me. And the thing is that it doesn't matter if you're a young coach or old coach. Those are distractions. A confident person walks in. If you have a test on Saturday, you don't half study and then go psych yourself up. You study. And so you get better in practice and you show it in a meet. So that's what I do. I just draw the line. This is what we're going to do. And that's it. And if you can't do that, that's it. Because I understand how the competition is going to make it. The problem, and I'm sure every coach in here understands, kids can't even concentrate anymore. They're in a state of distraction with earphones all the time. I ask them, count your steps. And 15 seconds later, they forget because they're in a state of constant distraction. So what I'm trying to do, at least at practice, is take away the distractions so they can focus.
What do you think it is about flip-flops that's made you against athletes wearing them?
Because when you I worked at McDonald's in 11th grade, and when I went to McDonald's, there were three things. The fries couldn't stay over 11 minutes, the floors couldn't be sticky, and make sure you smile. So therefore, you're at work. And we didn't wear flip-flops at work. and that's it. And secondly, they're not healthy for your feet. They're not healthy. We look, we're looking at things happen now. Look at all these people now with bad knees and bad hips because they were sagging 15 years ago. We're going to have an epidemic of knees and feet and ankles and hips because they didn't wear supportive shoes. They're not designed to wear. They're designed to wear small time. So this is why. This is reality. And so my thing is that if you're coming to work, then you dress for work. And then when you're off work, do whatever you want. I don't care. When you leave the building, walk barefoot. I don't care. But when you're at work, we're focused on what you're there for. Okay, who is this in the background?
That's my daughter. Say hi.
Hey, what's your name? How old are you? 7, 6?
She's 6. That's Daria.
Yeah. Well, the smile tells.
One more follow-up real quick.
Yeah.
With starting blocks, we see a lot of athletes have different settings. How do you go about helping the athletes you coach set their blocks?
Well, we try to keep it simple. Here we go. There is a correct way for every angle. First of all, there are three things. You want the shoulder directly over the hands. You don't want to displace at all because displacing is basically like if you're going up on your toes to jump because you're taking your feet off the blocks. Secondly, you want that front angle 90 degrees and then the back about 135. So the easiest way to describe that is when you're at your mark with your shoulders over your hands, your front shank should be either level or angled up. If it's angled down, you'll never get to that degree. So it should be at level or slightly angled up. And the back knee which usually should be, 3 or so inches, 3 to 6 inches in front. I'm sorry. The back knee should be in front about 3 to 6 inches in front of the front foot. So the number one thing is keeping that shank either equal or just a little angled up. But when you go to set, you have to get to 90 degrees. Most people don't feel comfortable going up high enough to get to 90 degrees. So they'll displace, which would mean taking their shoulders over their hands. And that's just like going up on your tippy toes and not giving you the power to push off the blocks. Because once you get to that angle, then when you go off the blocks, you want to push and take the time. One of my pet peeves in track and field is that we're always talking about quickness. Sprinting is powerful. It's not about quickness. It's about power, generating force. So the longer you push on the back block and the front block, the more power you have coming off of it. It is slower, but you have more power. So if our sport is the only sport that says there's no backswing. If you want to throw a ball, you go back, you throw it. It takes more time. Doesn't matter because it's harder. You want to kick, you kick harder. When you jump straight up, you take time to do it. But once we get into track, it's like, no, everything has to be quick, but it's not powerful. We're trying to create power. So the concept after that coming out is 3 Ps: power, patience, push. And so you're going to push yourself up into a running position. So the key is getting that shank either flat or just angled up and then going the front leg up to 90 degrees. And that back, they say 135, but the best way to do that is to get that knee on the ground about 3 to 6 inches in front of your foot, and that'll get the right angle in the back. But the key is the back block. You've got to push off the back block because when you do at that position, not only are you creating force, but you're also using that reflex from the Achilles tendon when it comes back. When you push that foot goes back and it gives you that angle. And that's why I don't like those super high blocks, because you can't do that. Your foot doesn't reflect. I like the lower blocks where the top of your foot can actually go back, stretch that Achilles tendon, and give you more power. So you think of the back foot as the back swing or the back of a kick. It takes more time, but it's more powerful.
Well, keeping with that, how about the arms? What do you want the arms to do in the start?
So the back, okay, so it's the, let's see, hold on. Yeah, so it's the, I know. The opposite arm, what you want it to do is you want to stay not completely straight, but about that angle, and it swings all the way. It doesn't stop early. It swings all the way, because that allows you time to push on both blocks. And you want to clear the blocks. We do something with all the athletes, is that we put tape down about 3 of their feet from the line. And we want that first foot to clear that piece of tape. It takes more time, but they're generally going to have, and Andy can jump in any time, they're generally going to have probably 1 step or so less for the first 10 meters. And so that's how they can do it. But I always tell them, the first 10 meters is your last 10 meters. And if you're powerful and patient your first, you're going to be powerful and patient your last. The ones that are quick and fast in the first are the ones that are slowing down and fast in the last. And that's just the way it is.
David, anything further?
Yeah. And let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about it is that I ran for 18 years and I had a lot of success in 100 meters. And there are very, very few races that I was in first place at 30 meters. Very few. And world-class ones, never. But all the races I was there at the end. And so I've always, you often hear, if you fix your start, you fix your start, you fix your start. And of course, this past year with Louis Hinchliffe, the same thing. Well, he fixed the start, he's really going to run fast. So, and my comment was, why don't they fix their finish? But let's not forget that I actually was the world record holder in a 60 as well. And when I was the world record holder in a 60, we changed the start to run a 60. And so there was a difference in the 60 and the 100. Just because you run a fast 60 does not mean you're going to run a fast 100. It doesn't mean it improves. They're totally different races, because you're only going to maximize your top speed about 10 meters. So therefore, I wanted to hit at about 60 to 70 in that area to hit full speed. We pushed there, and then only had a small area to slow down, because everyone slows down. But if you're running a 60, you can't do that. So you change and you're a little more aggressive. So you want to hit that full speed at 50 and run your last 10. So that's why I was able to run, get out and take the lead and win in a 60, but then go outdoors and win the 100. And if anyone wants to go back to 2018 60-meter indoor with Elijah Hall, perfect example. He ran that race. He didn't win. He didn't catch. He didn't win it until the last 6 inches. But he was dead last at one point in a 60, and he won. So it just tells you he knew how to accelerate, and that's really the most important thing.
With being that you're the head coach and Will Blackburn's the director, how does Will delineate your job duties, and what's maybe one mistake that you've made now being a head coach? Was before you're an assistant coach there. What's one mistake that you've made now as a head coach?
Well, for the most part, what really happened is that my role didn't change a lot. I mean, obviously they put a title in front, so I have to go to more meetings, but Will does all the paperwork, and Will and I get along extremely well. I totally respect him. We're good friends. And so he runs the program. And that's just a fact. I mean, if you had to put it together, Will is the mechanic, Will is the car, Will is all of that stuff. And I'm just kind of driving, and so I make it clear that he is the one running this program. And so it was convenient for us to split that, because when Leroy left and the nature of our program, it was convenient for us to do that. And it was a great idea. And it was his idea for us to split the head coach, director, track and field. But when it comes down to it, Will is running the program. And so being a head coach, having the title, it allows me to do more things. It gives me more powers working with the athletes, with the other coaches. But the reality is that it hasn't been a huge change for me. And to be honest, I'm extremely busy still outside of track. Every moment I'm not coaching, I'm doing something else. and you understand as a track coach, probably most of you, that's actually where I make money. So I earn a living outside because, to be honest, I actually lose money coaching because I miss out on financial opportunities. But I'm in a space where I'm enjoying what I do, and I can afford to do that. So it's because of that and understanding that there was no way to burden me down with a lot more things, because it would have put me in a position where either I earn a living or I coach. And so Will came up with an incredible idea of how to do that. Hey, I'll do all that stuff. I'll run the program. And we work together, because we work together on all decisions, all that stuff. We talk all the time. But the running is definitely Will. He's the guy.
That's great. In the chat, we have a question. You alluded to a different start in the 60 versus the 100. And they want to know, what is the difference? How do you coach?
Well, we did the same things, but it was not. It was not as I was more powerful. So in the 100 meters, you push, and I guess the best way to describe it, here was my ghetto part, is pushing a car. If you push a heavy car, you put really heavy. It just takes a lot of push, and you push, and the car eventually goes away from you. But if you have a lighter car, then you push, you get to that faster step a little bit faster. You don't change the push, but you get there faster. And I guess that's the easiest way to describe it. In a 60, you're not being as deliberate as far, because you want to get to a top speed faster. So it isn't really what you do out of the blocks. It's when you get out the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th step, you're a little bit more deliberate there than you would be in the 100 meters.
Okay. Going back to some more questions from the chat here, because they're adding up for us. Allison, you want to ask your question, please?
Absolutely. Carl, it's an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining our call. I coach at a small high school in Oregon, and all of the kids I coach have to do 4 events, or we have them do 4 events. And in our little Carl Lewis 4-peat quad, we usually have the 100, 200 high jump, and the 4x1. And so the kids get pretty exhausted by the end of the night. They've lost focus and they've lost the motivation. So what was it that kept you focused and motivated and fresh to complete and compete and crush in 4 events?
Well, thank you for saying that. But I'll start from the end. I wasn't fresh. I faked it. So I faked it. But I think there's a bigger picture to this. And Coach Andy and I have talked about this. When I was growing up in the 1970s, 60s and 70s, we went home when the street light came on for dinner. We played outside all day, and I did not realize it, but first thing, by 3 o'clock, you're dead, but you don't go home. So we invariably learned how to push through that glass wall without even knowing we were doing it. So that's a big advantage we have to kids now that are only in, manufactured sports. Secondly, what happens is that the more you learn how to do things correctly, you're fresher. And that's it. The third thing is the most important. I had to work harder. So when I was competing, I did the sprint workout every single day with all the sprinters, 2 days a week. They left, and then I did the long jump workouts. So it's a combination of, listening to the coaches, managing your thing, understanding how if you run better, it's more technical, and you get your rest and your recovery and all these things, you're going to be better. And then towards the end, you get down, usually the relays are last. That's a great way to motivate. Now we can do this together. And so I think that one thing you could say is, I did my thing, but now we can all be together. And that kind of brings that group energy. But sometimes in practice, when the kids start to get a little tired, put in something that's fun, that'll have them work out more. So at the end, hey, let's just do a little group relay. Okay, John, Jim, Jane, you guys can pick 4 people together. We're going to do a little relay to end practice today. And they're already a little tired, and they do it. They have fun, and they realize, hey, we can do this. This isn't so bad.
Awesome. That is fantastic. All right.
Great.
Tomorrow
Thank you.
We're going to do that.
Okay.
Say Carl says.
Yeah, blame it on me.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Well, if it works, blame it on me. If it doesn't, blame it on you.
There you go. Fair play.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jerome, you
We just discharge a patient who is a clear suicide risk.
You've got your question.
Yes. Carl, you don't remember this, but we can first met back in '91 at USA Outdoors. I was one of the few people who watched you guys, all three of you, jump 28 feet the same day.
Yeah,
Because I was,
remember those days? Anyway.
yeah, man. My question is, what do you think? It's a two-parter. What do you think is I don't want to say downfall, but
Say
the
it.
lack of the downfall of USA long jumping, and why don't jumpers sprint anymore like we used to do back in the day?
Okay, great question. So number one, it's the world. It's not just USA.
Right.
So
Okay.
so let me say something that's interesting that'll probably trip you out. And this, the men and the women, because the women used to jump 24. Every man that ever jumped long jump 29 feet is alive. Every woman that ever jumped 24 feet is alive. Why are we not talking to them? So I'll get that out of the way. I'm talking about world athletics should be doing things. So the main reason is that the event has changed. People are jumping different. And we are in a culture that it's okay to get the prize. So it doesn't matter how far you jump anymore, just as long as you get the prize. Secondly, I've been a coach now at Houston this is my 11th year. And I think only one coach has picked up the phone and called me and asked me anything about the long jump. We've just decided that it's easy. We still win medals. We can act like the 80s and 90s never happened, and we move on. To be at the Olympics the last time in Paris, which was incredible. It was incredible games. But, my last Olympics, I was 35 and I jumped 850. That would have won every Olympics except one since. And that's just not. But the number one reason is their technical reasons how the event has changed. And everyone's jumping the same. But when we were there, when I came out, I jumped 28 feet when I was 19 years old. And, my first world record when I was 19. And so I was so young that people didn't get it. They were like, well, what's going on? And then a couple of years later, they started saying, okay, I'm 24, he's 21. I'm 23, he's 20. They were figuring if I don't figure it out, I'm never going to win. And so in that 10-year period that I was winning, people were watching what we were doing that was different because Coach Tillett was a genius. And they started doing it. So we all jumped the same. They started looking at those last three steps because that's what's missing in our sport. And then I'll get to the landing too. So the last three steps, and they started getting it. If you go back, Mike Powell to 1988 and then 1991, he's a totally different jumper. And he jumped a foot and a half farther. Larry Myrick, Mike Connolly, these guys came in. Mike Connolly, not Mike Connolly, I'm sorry. When you talk about Mike Powell, he saw me when I jumped my first 28-foot live. He was in high school. He was a senior in high school. I was a sophomore in college. So here's a guy that said, this guy's only 2 years older than me, which most people thought we were farther apart. And he's if I don't jump 28, I'll never win. So the mindset was different. So what's happened is that the long jump may be the only event in the world of any sport that we are genetically predisposed to not do correctly. We are not designed to jump far. That's why we don't as humans. We're designed to jump up. So because of that, we have a fear of jumping far, we as human beings. So everyone that's ever jumped knows at that time when you fell, you almost fell on your face. Well, guess what? Every single jump I had, I felt that off the board because I kept my body position. So what's happened is that over time, we're getting the last step is too long. I'm looking at it. It's everyone in the world's last step is too long. So that changes that. So now because of that, they're stopping at the board. And then when you get stopping at the board, it also changes your angle of takeoff. That's why we have that silly sit and land and kick sand out of the pit landing. Because we're going too high, we're coming too low. We don't have the momentum to land on our feet and keep going. Now, everyone's best jump was more controlled on the board when they hit the ground because they ran off. And that's why in the long jump, whenever I ask a person, the first thing in question is, what's your best jump? They say 24.9. All right, now throw it out. Now let's take the next 9 and average that. That's who you are. So in the long jump, we talk about jump 28, forget that. It doesn't matter. What matters is the consistency, and then you're going to have it. Do you know I jumped over 28 feet 76 times legal before I jumped 29 feet. So I was a solid 28-foot jumper and before I jumped 29. Now you'll hear people will have one 27-foot jump. Oh, they can jump 28. So that's what happens. Now, so we're not really doing it. So now let's go on to your next question. Why don't they do both, right? Well, because it's too hard. The long jump's too hard. They quit. It's too hard.
True.
The long jumpers are the ones that can't sprint. Once you're fast enough, they stop sprinting. They stop jumping. So it's too hard. It's very difficult event. You know, you're talking about 1 second in the air. You're talking about 1 second for the last 4 strides. So from 30 feet out or the last 4 strides to the sand is 2 seconds. It's really, and then your body position has to be a place that's scary, and people are scared of that. So it's hard. And so we just decided to just accept where we are instead of trying to break the records. I told World Athletics, the reason I think they're changing the board thing is because they want to start a new sport, new event. They don't want to try to break the world record anymore. And I tell the athletes, they're saying you're not good enough. Of course you're good enough. You're great athletes, but they just don't want to do it. And so now we're in a place where if we change that rule, right, it won't get better. It won't get better because, you know, we used to have big 18-inch boards back when I was in high school. We've been through that. And guess what everyone did? They still fouled because, you know, if you were going to jump over a 4-foot creek or a 4-foot thing of water or whatever, you're not going to jump a foot back from it. You're going to go to the edge no matter what. So what happens if you go down on an 18-inch board and they'll say, do your warm up, now move back 1 foot. Well, guess what everyone's going to do? They're going to reach. And it's like, you reach, and then they move you up, and then you foul. It's not going to change. But we didn't talk to people that understand the science of what we're doing. So that's what it is. It's too hard for athletes to stay consistent. You cannot be a sprinter that long jumps. They've never existed. Jesse Owens, myself, Ulyss Peacock, all these people, you know, they were long jumpers that sprinted. If I came to Houston, I had no interest in sprinting, but it evolved and I understood it. So you have to really be a long jumper at heart because you have to get it together. You know, there are a lot of great long jumpers, but the thing is that you can't do multiples unless you can know that you can go out and jump far in 1 or 2 jumps. And so now the philosophy is I have 6, get 1 in. Whenever I have 6, I told myself I have 3. Whenever I had 3, I told myself I had 1. You know, that was it. Don't foul, unacceptable. So we worked on that. So I think it's really, really difficult to do, and people just quit because it's too hard.
Well, in backing up or following up with that, because that was one of my questions down the line here, can you take us through those last few steps? If we have somebody that has this mentality, let's say, or says they do, how would you train them?
Well, what we did, you know, I took the long jump back this year, and we have, you know, Drew and Kyle are totally capable. They know what to do. They understand it. It's just that I wanted to, you know, that was one of the things the head coach could do. I wanted to bring the jumpers in with the sprinters because one of the problems is jumpers don't run enough. You know, if I told a sprinter, hey, okay, you're running the 40 today, but you're running it 6 times. They would look at me like I had 650 heads, but jumpers do it every week. So get in shape. That's the first thing. Then the real issue is in those last 3 steps is that you have to go long, short, short. Now, because we're trying not to fall on our face, we go long, we go semi-long, and then short, long. So they want to run off, but then they back off. If you go and look slow, everyone down right now, that last step is long. And then they'll get some good jumps in, but guess what? That's the one they were too close and they put their foot down. That's why every jumper says, I had a long foul because they were close and put their foot down, but they fouled. The one you didn't foul is the one you did. But guess what? If you do that, then it's what I call the long jump curse. It's the only event where you can make a mistake and not know what you did and have a great performance. And now you go down, you didn't realize you were too close, so you didn't go long because you were too close. You put the foot down and you got it. Now you go back up the next time, I got to jump again, and you go back to the last jump and it's short, and now you're pressing, and it is an evil event if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So the big key is if you go back and you look at the jumps, it was long, short, short. Now they're trying to go long, but then they shorten that. So if let's say if you're 19 steps, 17 has got to be long. We're talking about I was about 16:10 with 2 steps to go. And so, but on that, it's like basically 16:10, it was over 9 feet. I'm running far and then short, and you put your foot down on the board. But what happened, we're getting too close. My check mark was 34 feet. 4 steps out was 34 feet. But I know a lot of them that are 30. They're not enough room. So what we're doing is we're running in, we're just chopping to get our feet down. You have to run. And when I try to explain that 17th step is like a football team coming out on the field and running through that paper. You've got to charge that 1 step. And your approach needs to be in a way that you build so that we all know that you can run full speed about 10 meters. Well, you want to hit that full speed right around the last 4 steps, which is about what it is, because we know humans can go, men can go 4 to 5 steps per second. So this is all that's timed, and that's all science-based. And so we hit that top speed at that check mark of 34:10, which is 4 steps out. And then we go a step, and then we run off that step, which is that 1 step that's faster, like you're pushing. And then you put those feet down. The hardest thing is to put the feet down. It's to put and getting those feet down. It's very hard because of the timing. You have to run off that step and then put those feet down in less than a second. So it's extremely hard, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. When I came out of high school, I jumped 26.8, 8:13 in high school. My last 4 meets were 26 feet. My freshman year, I jumped 27, 1 jump, but my best legal jump was 26.7. I jumped less my freshman year. And because I was learning, and if you go back and find tapes of me 1980, I'm all over the place. But you saw, like in January, I looked a mess. In February, I looked a little better. March, a little better. The Olympic trials, a little better. You saw it coming. And then the second meet of my sophomore year. So now, mind you, that's 3 semesters that I've been through. Now we're in the 4th semester of me learning. Is in the second meet in February is where it popped. And that was the world record. And then it went on. So it took a long time.
Now, when you say short, I've heard the coaches say, or quote, long jump people say, that you don't bring a full step through. You keep that like a low turnover.
What you do is that the best way to describe it is that you roll on that foot. So what I guess the way to understand it is the purpose of that. So 17, the purpose of 18 is to not slow down. You're not setting anything up. You set it up with 17. And then you want 18 to roll so you don't slow down. And then you put the foot down almost immediately. And you don't stop into the board. You just set it down and let it go by the way. And that's the thing. You go long, bam, bam. I mean, I have on YouTube, I have this thing called, it's like the Carl Lewis jump series. It's from Mount Sac, in 87, when all the jumps were over 28 feet. It slows down. Look, you'll see that penultimate. I'm just going long on some of those on that step, and then bam, bam. And then because of the angle of takeoff is a little bit lower than what we're seeing, I'm able to my feet are able to land a foot in front of way in front of my body and still have the most momentum to collapse the knees and then go right up instead of sitting behind it. The thing with the sitting, whatever they call that landing, Europeans were doing it then when I was jumping. But the thing that bothers me about that is that it's impossible to put your feet down and then land in that hole. It's just simply impossible. Right. And that's why we're getting all the sand everywhere, because you're trying to kick your feet out for a place to land, but you simply can't do that. So you're landing behind your feet every single time.
When you said body position, I think this is something that goes against what a lot of people are coaching, is a lower takeoff versus the higher takeoff.
Yes. Yeah. So the way you want to go up is you want to rise. If you put your foot down, you'll rise up. Because when you're going on that long step, your hips are going to go close to the ground because the step's longer. And then you roll off that foot, and then as you're coming back up, the foot touches and you just go. That's it. So there's no slamming. You really shouldn't hear hard. And then you'll go up, but you'll rise up. And then another thing too, that's very, very important, is when you leave the ground, keep that knee bent as you rise. Because, I say something to the athletes, stay out of the pit. 95% of the long jump, Coach Les always said, was from the start of the run to the board. 95%. So the first thing they do is they get in the air, they start thinking about jumping, or they start thinking about jumping on the runway.
Right.
Once you leave the board correctly, things will you feel like you're running into the air. But you have to let that knee come up and not kick out right away so that your body rises. But we get them kicking out right away because they're going straight, going up at a higher angle. And then you just go up, you cycle, you come down, or throw the head back. The first thing you want to throw the head back, or throw the legs back. No, you want to go up and rise, let your hips rise.
Well, long jump coaches, if you didn't get a clinic out of that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And anyone that follows me knows I'm on social media. The thing that gets me is that, what I learned from my coaches and my family is that, and sometimes the kids get mad at me because I talk and tell secrets. I'm not telling secrets. I'm telling facts, and things that we worked on. It's depressing to me to go there and our best American jumps 25.8 at the Olympic Games. So I don't care if everyone knows everything and the best athlete wins. That's where I am. So I would hope that. I mean, what do you think it's like? I'm 63 years old and I've held the world record indoors since 1981. And I go to track meets and I'm like, meet record holder. It's like, to me, it's embarrassing. I'm like, dang, I'm like 60 years old and I'm still the meet record holder. I'm going to die. My name's still going to be on the stage. So it's weird. I mean, to be the record holder at the NCAA meet indoors. I'm still the record holder. It's weird.
Oh, man. Well, we've got some sprint questions now.
Okay.
The infamous new shoes.
Before we
Andy?
move off the long jump, can I just interject something? And Colin, I hope will back me up. Somebody asked a question about drills and this, that, and the other. And I would venture a guess, we don't do drills. We teach the event. And what I mean by that is it's repetition. Carl will have them jump and immediately they come out of the pit. What did that feel like? What did you think you did? And then if that's what he saw, then he'll reinforce that. And so it takes a tremendous amount of time and effort, but it's not isolated drills. I mean, and this goes for all events. I think we're on the same page.
Mainly we don't.
We spend our time listening to Coach T. I mean, you can't break it into 20 different parts and then assemble it.
Yeah.
You're either practicing the whole and explaining the parts so that they get an understanding and a feel for what it is that they did right. And eventually, I think his goal and my goal is when they get out of the pit, when they come out of the blocks, the race is over, they can tell you what went wrong.
Right.
You don't have to tell them what went wrong.
Yeah. And we become their eyes.
So do you do full approach, full jumps then in practice versus any short jumps?
No, we only do short jumps one day, and we never do full approach jumps in practice. So it's either we do the approach and the jump separate. That's something I did, and then that's what we do. We never do them together. And one of the reasons is because and I'll get back to the approach and the jumping, because everything happens so fast. It's too hard to learn. Mm-hmm. So because everything's so fast when you're doing approach. But when we do our approach, when we're doing short runs, but when we do our approaches, we do the last 3 steps. So we'll do the last 3 steps, which is the most difficult part of the long jump. So they'll do their whole approach and most of the time I do them on the track, because what drives me crazy is that I look at these long jumpers and I'm like, why are you running like a gymnast? We talk about being speed on the runway, but then they get out there and they look like a gymnast. Sprint. So if I get them off the runway, they think they're on the track. They have a mentality of running like on the track. It drives me crazy. You'll go run 100 meters and then go over there and look like a gymnast. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, and Jerome, as a 27-foot jumper, is going in hysterics here, so he can relate with that. We had a question
Before
here
we
about.
move over to the sprints,
Well, wait.
We picked up the horizontal jumpers, and I think after 3 months, they're still in shock at the amount of work that they're doing, the sprinting that they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in shape.
That's good. Carl, one quick on chat here. Is flat a good cue for the last 2 steps, or what would you say?
I'd say push roll.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So you have to go to last 3. Yeah, it's always connected. So it's push, roll off that. So push 17, roll 18, and just put your foot down. So, trying to go flat, that's just roll. Just let the foot touch and roll over. The objective is to roll through it and not lose speed.
Right.
Because your hips are already lower since the stride is longer. And so if you just roll on it and not lose speed, it allows you to put your foot down. The longer you can make that 17, the easier it is to put 19 down.
Okay, excellent.
But just roll on it.
Okay, moving over to the new shoes. What is your thought on that?
Love it. I love it. I love technology. Of course, I love what Nike's doing, especially every quarter. But I think, I hear all the stuff going on, but you know what? Then go use a wooden tennis racket. So that's my thing. I love the technology. I love the fact they're putting money into the sport. I love they're doing everything possible to let people run faster. So I don't know how else to say how much I totally approve of it.
How about training and the new shoe? Because we're seeing injuries.
Yeah, we don't train in them, but the number one reason is because they're expensive. So yeah. But I don't think you need to train it. No, I would rather. I think my recommendation is to train in regular spikes, and then for the meets running, it's not that much of a difference. It does feel a little different, but I wouldn't do it. I mean, I personally like a brand new pair of spikes every meet. So having new shoes is nothing, but I would not train in them all the time. No. So coaches out there, thank me later for saving you a lot of money.
Question. Let's see. Yolanda Gurley, would you like to ask your question here? You unmute. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hey.
Hello, Carl Lewis. Thank you so much for being on this call. I'm a big fan.
Thank
Question.
you.
I am a assistant sprint coach, and I recently became the jumps coach for a small Christian school in Virginia.
Hallelujah.
Is it how often should we be working on our jumps? We practice 6 days a week. Should we be working on jumps for?
Let's get on that first. Let's get this. How do you practice 6 days a week? Help me out with that. And make that brief.
Well, after school, we practice from 3:30 to 6. We run, and then we go to the weight room. And then we have Saturday practices at a high school, because at our school, we don't have a track. So we practice on the football field. And then on Saturdays, we
go to a track.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, I would recommend it to figure out a way to get down to 5 days. That's a lot. That's the first thing. And because you really want to try to get a time when you have 48 hours of recovery. You really want a period in the week where you have 2 days off. That's what you're trying to get to. So if you say you want to work out on Saturday, then you may want to consider Monday through Thursday, take Friday off, and it's Saturday and Sunday. So you want to do that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we break the season up in 3 sections. The fall is all conditioning. Andy will back this up. Today was the first day the sprinters put on spikes. And they was like freaking out. So we do the conditioning because of the workouts we do in the spring are high intensity. So we do all this stuff to do it. And when Andy was talking about doing the whole thing, another thing is that when you're in flats, you're running slower. It's easier to work on things and that kind of stuff. So what I would say is, focus on the conditioning, what you're doing. And if you're only on the track 1 day a week, I would take another day off. I wouldn't go 6 days. That's a lot training. And jumping wise, we we're jumping usually 1 day a week, but this year I'm having them jump a little bit 2 days a week. I'm looking at more of the amount of jumps I want them to perform. So I'm trying to get them to 15 to 20 jumps a week. In the past, it's like, oh, 7, I'm tired. I mean, I would never even imagine doing a workout with less than 20 jumps in practice. But nowadays, kids are like, oh my God, after 7, they're just dead. So I would say 10 to 15 jumps a week. If you want to break that up, that's fine. That would probably be a good amount. And working on your approaches, 6 approaches a week are probably okay. But if you do the approaches, if you want to get away with 6, you really need to do them isolated. Do them first. And if you want to say, let's say if you jump Tuesday, Thursday, well, then maybe take, 10 jumps on Tuesday, done. And then Thursday, you maybe take 6 approaches and then 3 or 4 jumps. That's kind of how it would be a good way to break it up.
Okay, what would you recommend? So, like I said, we don't have a track and we don't have a long jump. We don't have a runway or a pit.
Mm-hmm.
We do have like a little makeshift one, but it's not that great. And I heard you guys say you don't do a lot of drills. So, what would you suggest that I do as far as our jump practices?
There's something that I did. You remember I talked about those last 3 steps. So
yes.
we started in September in practice, and they were going from 6 steps, and I put those cones down the distances I wanted. It's basically, let's say if it's the total is 12 feet, so you go 12. So the first one would be maybe 6. I'm sorry, 5 feet, and then 3 feet, and then the board. So you could say 5 or 6 and 3, and then the board. So that's kind of how we would do it. We put those cones down and put them back 6 steps and let them run up and match those cones. And the girls are going to be a little shorter than the guys. That's something you can do on the grass. You don't need a pit to do that. And then once they get used to the rhythm, then on the weekends, they when you have access to a pit, then you could make that a jump day. Because if you did anything, that's what I would do. Make that day a jump day. And then you have your sprinters sprint, your jumpers jump on that day. That's it, whatever the sprint is. Because you can do starts on the field if you have that. You can do running, that kind of thing, but you do want to get on the track at least 1 day a week. So that's what I would do. I would start off with that drill, and we started that in September. They went 1 month from 6 strides only of just doing that in flats. So and until they got that, and then we went back to 8 strides, then we went back to 10 strides. But those cones are still down. Another thing that is very important that athletes need to do is count your steps. Not every other step, every step.
Okay.
Count every step of your run, every single step. Hear the rhythm. I mean, I was on the Oprah show about 10 years ago or so, and she asked me about the long jump, and I said it was just ingrained. So she said, what does it sound like? And I closed my eyes, and I went through the entire approach sound. I said 1, 2, 3. And when the show came on, it matched my 96 run. And that was 2012. So you're talking about all those years later, it was still so ingrained. And you hear that rhythm when your foot touches the ground, you hear that, and it's building. And then that step, bam, bam, bam. Count those steps, hear that rhythm, feel it. And sometimes in the beginning, they forget, because that's the distraction with dealing with kids. Count it out loud. Tell them, count it out loud. And then you count it with them. And this is remedial stuff you do in the off season. You're still kind of in the off season a little bit, but these are the things you do, why it takes so long. So we just started jumping in the pit the middle of October. So we had 6 weeks of that. It was driving them crazy, but it's like, you got to get that rhythm because it's so hard. And now they do it. They're still wanting to back off, but they have the rhythm. So they're doing the rhythm, and it's trying to stop at the board because they still don't want to go over. So I would say those 2 things are my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And it's funny you said that, because today at practice, I had them counting out loud their steps.
Count, that's right. So anytime anyone tries to say, oh, that's like childish, well, I counted in Atlanta. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you.
Lionel, you're up.
Hey, Carl, how you doing? How are you? Thank you for being here with us tonight. So my question is pretty much touching more so on the mental preparation. How do you help like athletes that are overcoming or that need to overcome more so like anxiety or are stressed or, have mental blocks at high level competitions?
The number one way is preparation. if you want to get an A on a test, you study. If you don't study, you're stressed about the test. So I do two things. I in my career, and I do with them as well, I have kind of a stress test during the week. They don't know. We do on Mondays. Many of you might have heard of our, 4-3-2, which we did that way back in our time. Well, I know that if you run a fast 4-3-2, you'll run fast on Saturday. And when they do their short run jumps on Tuesday, we measure them sometimes, because I know that your short run jump is going to probably be 2 feet less from 10 steps. It'll be about 2 feet less than your big jump. So let's say if your personal best is 25 feet, you go out and jump 23.6 in practice on a short run. I don't always measure them, but when they're on a good day, hey, let's measure that. And then it's 23.10. Oh my God. And I tell them it's going to be about 2 feet or more farther. So now they're like, man, I'm ready. So I try to create triggers within the week that are going to give them confidence. So the breakdown, hey, if you run 50, 35, and 21, then you're going to run 10-4. But if you run 49, 34, 20, 21 flat, you're going to run 10-2. So now they're doing it. And then that day they do it, they're like, I can't wait to run this Saturday. So put triggers in the week to give them confidence, so that when they go into week, and then you let them know, man, that was a great workout today. You're ready, and build that confidence. But put those triggers in the week, whatever your workouts are, that you can measure, so that they can see, hey, my workout's better, so I'm going to run better. And then you go into the weekend running, and then guess what? Then they're excited to go back to that trigger workout to make it better, because they know it's going to go back on Saturday. And then you get this. So we get this, you run fast Saturday, Monday, you have a great meet Saturday, you come back ready to run faster Monday to have a great meet Saturday again. And that's kind of how we do it. And then the other thing is focus on what you can control. I know that, we get to practice and kids will say, oh my God, it's so windy. It's windy for everybody. Oh, my legs are sore. Everyone's legs are sore. They all ran yesterday. Oh, my back hurts. Mine does too, just like your parents. So, and you just diffuse it, because, and then you'll be all right. It's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. But everyone still, through all of that, some kids just don't really get it done at the end. And then you're getting to another area of, are they so nervous of success? Because sometimes it's go deeper into why are they continue to make mistakes in big meets. It may be something deeper, that they're afraid of what happens if they win. Then sometimes go deeper into their program. We have mental health department now, where we have 2 people that are focused on that. So a lot of times they'll go in and talk to them, and they're doing fine. They think it, but I'll say, you know what? For some reason in the big meets, they always don't perform. So why don't you dig into what's really going on? Because sometimes it has nothing to do with sports. It's like, well, if I become successful, then maybe blah, blah, blah. And they may not even realize there's a block inside of them. So I think that create those triggers, but if it's not really working, then it may be something deeper. And it's not necessarily just the simple mental health thing, but it's something that may be entrenched, that they're afraid of success. Because I know I've had a couple of people in the last 3 years that was clear. They were just afraid. Once they ran well, then all of a sudden they started doing destructive things. They were afraid of the success.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of keeping in line a little bit with that no, actually it's totally different. Could you describe your warm up and a warm down?
Yeah. Warm up. So 90 minutes. Basically it was 45 minutes, and that's what they do now. They start off walking for about 5 to 10 minutes, and they start 90 minutes out. So they'll start walking for 5 to 10 minutes, and then on their own, they continue that 45 minutes of walking. They'll walk for a while. And the purpose of that is when you're at a track meet, you're excited, you're ready. So the walking, the group of sprinters, they walk, they're talking, they relax, calm down, and then they start walking. And I started that not because of that. I started that in LA because I was so broke down. I couldn't start by jogging, to think, I think it was 9 days total, but I ran 7 out of 9 days, but the first 4 in a row. So I was dead. So I couldn't. And I realized, that was cool, because I would think about things, I'd relax. So that's it. Then we do very little, very, very little stretching. It's all I'm on the ground, all dynamic. Once you start warming up, it's all dynamic. I have them do a stride, they come back and they'll stretch, stride, come back. So they got it warmed up, but I allow them to do that. What I'll tell them is that I'll see you in 45 minutes with your spikes on. and I'll let them do their workout, their warm up. They'll go. I'm not watching every little thing. I don't do all of that. And then in 45 minutes out, they'll come put their spikes on, and then we do 3 or 4 fast strides, take some starts, and that usually takes about 20 minutes or so. And then they go back and do whatever last minute rub down, blah, blah, blah. And 10 minutes or so before they have to report, they can report. Now that will adjust a little bit based on NCAA, you have to report 30 minutes out. So that'll adjust a little bit. So I'll run them up a little bit closer to the report time because we want to make sure that time between the calm down, because we want some time for them to cool down a little bit, around 15 to 20 minutes. So we want that time to stay pretty much the same. So maybe I'll flip and have them do their rub out at the 45 minute and then do everything a little bit later so that they get there a little later. So we have to adjust, but basically 45-minute warm up on your own with dynamic stretching, and then 20 minutes of strides, starts, and all of that. And then usually 20 minutes of, settling down, getting rub out, all that stuff.
Now at a practice, how does that differ at all?
It does differ. It's just shorter. They do probably about, would you say, Andy, about 30 minutes?
Yeah, they're usually about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
The walking part isn't part of it.
It's eliminated.
They'll jog a 400, and then
they'll warm up.
Some of them have a pretty extensive stretching and dynamic movement that they go through. Some of the others don't. I mean, it's
about
kind
a
of freelance.
That maybe comes in totally.
Well, okay, totally oblivious. So that's a good question. So what we did is that we had a UH warm up in September. So there was a warm up that U of H did in September to give them some guidance as to what to do. And then as time goes on, they did that as a team and rah, rah, rah. And then as time goes on, they kind of use that as a back, just kind of a baseline, and they figure that out. Because I want the athletes to have some independence and thinking and focus. Now, sometimes they're like too long. I'm like, y'all, let's go. Sometimes they're like too long. But basically, we gave them a format. And the entire team went through it. And even now, they still, many of them do that same thing. But I try to allow that period of time something that you get. So when you come out, it's like, well, I didn't get a chance to do this, or I didn't do that, or I wasn't ready. No, because you did what makes it comfortable for you.
How about warming down after practice?
Well, we have they go to the indoor track and they run 2 laps and 4 60-meter strides. So, and that's because we do a lot of med ball, a lot of core. So right now we're doing med ball 4 days a week. We've been doing it since September. So they'll do, after they finish their running, they'll go over, do their med ball, and then they'll do 2 laps, which is a 400, and then 4 strides. And when we do our strides or anything slow like that, they're always with their hands on their hips, because we want to make sure we emphasize pushing all the time. So they're always, most of the time we're doing any kind of running, if it's not on the track, it's always with their hands on their hips, even in stadium steps and everything.
Scott, you've got a question here to take us home, I think, the last sprint.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you, Carl, for being on tonight. We really appreciate it. This question's for Andy.
Okay.
Now that you've spent so much time with Carl at Houston, you were a great high school coach. I know that, obviously. We've been friends for so long. What if you went back to high school now, what are the things that Carl has taught you that you would have changed or would change on your high school practice or team?
Don't tell them how shady I am, Andy.
It's funny. I mentioned this earlier. I mean, for 30 years in Houston, if Tom spoke, I was there. Clinics, I worked at his summer track camps, and it's shocking to me. I'll be thinking something, and Carl will say it. And so, but one thing I definitely would change is the amount of time spent with the sprinters. The idea that sprinters aren't made is to me, it sounds like a quaint truism that was never true. And there's a lot more to sprinting than meets the eye. And my God, there's so much more to the long jump than meets the eye. And so, yeah, I think I would have a much clearer understanding of the start and the acceleration, and I would spend a lot more time on that. Some of the things that were addressed earlier when we first came on, and we were talking about the start and the difference between the 60 and the 100. One thing that I found interesting starting last year working with Carl is that on the first day, he told the sprinters, I train you for the 100. We run the 60 indoors because we have to. He says, and if you get, if it looks like you're going to be a conference finalist, if you look like you're going to make nationals, we'll start talking about the specific adjustments that might have to be made for a 60 as opposed to 100. Because in 100, you don't want to hit your max at 50, 55. Mm-hmm. Because you've got 45 meters to go, you got 40 meters to go, but obviously you want to get closer to your max velocity sooner in a 60. And so he starts talking about the differences between the two races, and they're two different races. And yeah. I think a lot of people who aren't sprinters themselves, I was never a sprinter, nobody would ever accuse me of that. You have a concept of, you get a good start, you get a good reaction to the gun, and you go as hard as you can for as long as you can, and hopefully the finish line comes up sooner rather than later. And that's so far from, what coaching sprints is all about. Now, I'm sure some people are thinking, well, I knew that already. I've been coaching a long time. I didn't know that. So I would, that's something I would definitely bring to my high school team.
Well, Carl, we're down to the last minute or so, and I want to respect your time that you've given us tonight. Do you have any final words of wisdom for us? And do you have any recommended reading books that you would recommend?
Well, the biggest thing is that, and I'm speaking to a lot of the high school college, coaches. Well, let me start with this. The reading obviously is Coach Tellez. We did a book together. It's really his book, but he said he would do it without my name on it. So, and I wanted it because I wanted his legacy. But The Science of Speed, and you get it on Amazon. So that's something definitely. It's scientific, but it really breaks it down. And he talks about a lot of things because a lot of the papers he had was from the 70s and 80s. And what people don't realize, back in the 1980s, Coach Tellez went down to NASA with some of his papers, and we're meeting with physicists and engineers and everything. Like, is this correct? And so it's really science-based. So it's something I think will be extremely helpful. The other thing is there's so much misinformation on the internet. It's depressing. And so I think challenge these things. Just because someone's on the internet doesn't mean they're correct. And there are way too many people on the internet just talking, and it's incorrect. Every day I send Andy things every day that are just bad. And so when I'm a college coach, if you're telling kids to reach, you're telling kids to pull back, that's why they're getting hurt. And this is something that's not just in high school, but if you're old enough to know that the NFL, until 20 years ago, they never practiced off season. They left, they drank, they got jobs, they did everything. And they never heard hamstring injuries. Why are there so many hamstring injuries now when they're doing everything? It's because we're teaching them things that are not correct. So the biggest thing I would say is read the book, understand the science, and question people. If someone cannot explain to you exactly why something is working, well, then they don't know what they're saying. I mean, I see, when your arm strokes, I have this thing called thumb to the eye and elbow to the sky. But in the middle, your arm has to straighten out. It has to straighten out at the bottom, and then it closes and comes up in the back. Well, I see people teaching, just stay like this, stay like this, stay like this. Well, that's not giving yourself long enough to push on the ground. And so the emphasis is stay on the ground, because you've got hip extensors in the front, you have hamstrings, you have the Achilles tendon. All these things are designed to work together to have you run faster, to lengthen your stride with power. It's not about pull your feet off the ground quick, because now you're asking muscles to do things they're not supposed to do. So the biggest thing is, that's a great reading, The Science of Speed by Tom Tellez and Carl Lewis, and question things that don't make sense. We've gone through this whole process of toe drag. Now, to me, I mean, like, maybe I'm missing something, but when I was 6, I knew something that was dragging was slower. So I never understood why that made sense. And all these people, and I got into all these discussions about that and low heel recovery. Coach Tellez wrote about that in the 80s. All this stuff. And then Asafa Powell gets on, I never toe dragged. And then it's like, okay, never mind. It's just, but all these years we're teaching this stuff, and it's incorrect. There's no science base for it. It doesn't make sense. But we're teaching because some, hot person said it, and they got on the internet, and they have 50,000 followers, and, and they're very, very vocal. But that same person, if we just stopped it, learn it correctly, you could be 200,000 followers helping kids instead of 50,000 hurting. So, that's a great book. And like I said, I really encouraged it for him to write it, and, Carrie Sprick to write it, because it's so important that we understand the science of what we're doing, because it's not just about performance. It's about injury. It's about health. I mean, I went my entire career and I had 2 hamstring injuries. And the first one was in 1981 when I was overworked. And the second one was when, I don't know if you remember, Sue and everyone, when at Nationals, they decided that brilliant idea of putting the 100 meters last. Remember, they had the 200 first and the 100 last, and everyone got hurt, because it's like you're running this volatile race at the end. Evelyn got hurt. I got hurt. All these people got hurt. But that's it, my whole career. But guess what? 2 months later, I broke the world record. So Coach Tellez knew what to do to get it back and get the injury. So that's one of the things I do in Houston, is that I get kids that are damaged and we fix them and they run fast. And so that's the thing. But I will say this last thing about the program that I'm excited about. Number one is that I've been there 10 years. This is my 11th year. And we've dropped the stick a couple of times. Relay teams do it. But U of H has never been worse than 3rd place when they cross that finish line, 7 times. And then in the 100 meters, we've had 8 consecutive years with a finalist in the 100 meters at the NCAA meet. So, and it's been 5 different people. So it's not just like go out and get the thing. I don't get the stars. I don't even talk to them, because it's too much drama. We get kids that want to be here. We get, I don't look at the portal. If kids that transfer, call me and transfer. I have no interest in the portal. We're going to coach people. We're going to develop people, and we're going to take high school kids and make them better. And because it's hard, but I think that all of you coaches, get the information, communicate with the kids. Look at yourself as a teacher. You're teaching ideas that are based in science. So if you take yourself up in the front of the classroom at the track and you're explaining it, and then encourage questions so that they're learning. So ultimately, like Andy said earlier, when they finish the race, the first thing I always say is, what did you think of your race? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it was this. Oh, that's right. Because I've been in every race.
Right.
I mean, I've been in every environment, every race. I mean, I ran for 18 years, at the international level, not to mention high school from 9 years old. So they say, okay, I remember that. That was 87. Oh, that was 62. That's how it is. And I utilize that. And you'll do the same thing. But think of yourself as a teacher teaching these people how to understand what to do correctly. And then and then encourage them to ask questions. And you're not going to always have them. Go get it. With Coach Tellez, he doesn't as much now. He's 91. But when he came out, I would stop and just let him coach, and listen and learn. The thing is that once you learn the science, it's better. But then it's the communication is the second thing. But don't be afraid of your kids learning everything. You want them to leave and be able to explain it, not just coach, but explain what they're doing. In our sport, there is no mechanism for retirement. You can go out and retire and start coaching next week. No one in the world says, what do you know about this? There's no test. If there's no, and now with the internet, you can just use your name and go start coaching. You may not even know what you were doing, but people respect your name. They're going to follow it. So be a teacher, teach your students and athletes what they're doing, understand it so that they can be a beacon for you and teach. That's the coaching tree and track, knowing exactly what you're doing and feel them being empowered to be a part of the process and not you just being someone talking to them.
Fantastic. Well, I think you've made your parents proud. I know they're watching you and very pleased, definitely.
Yeah.
And Coach Tellez too. So again, Carl, I can't thank you enough for your time tonight, and Andy for you facilitating this. That's been fantastic. We've been averaging 50 people on the call, which is a new PR. So you've set another world record, Carl.
Well, I don't know if I should say this, but look, if it's any long-term questions, just DM me. I'm on follow me on Instagram. I just that blue sky thing I just started. I'm getting ready to leave Twitter. I'm over it. But it's easy. Carl_Lewis. You'll find me on Instagram, and just send me a DM or follow me and just ask questions about it. I don't mind talking about the long jump, talking about the sprints, because we should all share our information.
That's that. Right. Well, you're going to be bombarded now. You'll need a secretary.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
Great seeing you.
Yes, great seeing you too, Carl.
Okay,
thanks so much.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow, Andy.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.